Hello everyone, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. In this video we're going to be talking about the Ensis Wing, a completely new wing for this year. First time we've actually reviewed and used the Ensis Wing before, and this wing will be going in the full SUPboarder Pro Wing Test later on next month. So who and what are Ensis? Ensis are a Swiss-based company, and the man very much behind those wings is Bloss Miller, who's an incredibly good freestyle foil windsurfer, and he is now really getting into the wing foiling and the freestyle side of that as well, doing lots of crazy tricks that you see a lot of clips around on the internet. This is the only wing that Ensis make, but they do make a 2.5, a 3.5, a 4.5, this the 5.2 and a 6 meter. This wing, the 5.2, retails at £825 or 928 euros, and for that price you do not get a pump, you just get the bag, a leash and of course the wing. Ensis do say this wing is an all-round wing that you can get entry-level beginner wingers into the sport on non-foiling boards, up to the real dedicated freestyle wingers that are coming out now, and the wave wingers as well, so if you're wave riding, catching bumps. The construction of this wing, well, Ensis have been focusing on making this wing as light as possible but as strong as possible. The main fabric is 3x3 Teijin fabric, which is made in Japan, which is incredibly light and strong. There's high tensile threads in all the stitching, and the leading edge, they say, is one of the best quality leading edges that stops any wear or abrasion on the internal tube itself, giving you a longer lifespan of your internal tubes. And a good point to mention there is you can replace or repair any of the internal tubes of this wing to get you back on the water. The two main tubes you've got your main big leading edge, and then you've got your central rib strut here. You can also lock off the rib strut with these two separate valves either side to stop the air from leaving that rib strut, so if you want to roll it up and keep the rib inflated, you can also do that. When it comes to inflating your Ensis and getting on the water, it's very quick and easy to do that because it comes with a max flow inflation valve, which has come from the Liquid Force kitesurfing kites. It's a very well known valve. It's been used in the kite industry for a few years now, and it's a very quick way of getting a large amount of air in your wing. It's supplied with this attachment, which is very easily clicks on. This is a pressure fit, makes a good seal, and then you can get a large amount of air with a standard ISUP pump. All you need to do is have the standard fitting here, and you can clip that in the end of your hose. Pretty standard stuff that most people will probably have with their inflatable paddle boards, or you can easily find the attachments online. There's a non-return valve inside that sets itself in place when you start inflating it, and then when you want to deflate it, you just put your finger in there to release the non-return valve. Very simple, very easy. We've been using this over the last month, and we haven't had any problems with this valve itself. It has quite a high recommended pressure for this. This takes 7 to 8 psi, but I know the website, they also talk about 9 psi as well, which is a lot of pressure for a front leading edge or a wing in general. But then having that high pressure does give you a very rigid structure, which when you're flying in higher winds or you're trying to get yourself going in lighter winds, does make a difference to getting you powered up early or keeping the control in the wing when it's windy for much longer. Looking at the handle setup and placement on the Ensis wing, you've got 3 large handles on the main rib. They are nice and solid, very chunky, soft webbing on the outside of the handle, but a hard, rigid structure inside, which gives it a very easy handle to hold on to. The middle handle is smaller, and the 2 bigger ones at the front and back do give you a large amount of areas you can hold on to, but we'll speak about those in a bit more in a minute. There's also a big, large, chunky handle, the same style handle on the front leading edge. Again, nice and easy to grab, feel very secure and very planted, even in the windiest and gustiest of conditions. Other things on this wing, you get a really good quality leash. It's a very easy leash to put on, and you even get a little extension piece so you can make your leash a little bit longer. Maybe if you're flying with a bigger wing, or you've got longer arms, or you're further away from your wing. It's a very personal thing. Whether you want to tether your leash to your waist, you might need that extension piece just to make it a little bit easier. It's a webbing leash strap, which I'm personally really fond of. I know it's not going to break. It's a lightweight leash, and it's good to see it come in as standard with a package like this. Now, Ensis are a relatively new kid on the block when it comes to wings, but then to be honest, all brands are. Some brands maybe have come from a kitesurf industry, but we really are pretty much starting off anew. Ensis did have a wing before this, and you might see some clips and some videos on the internet very similar to this, but it had a window. They did try to put some stitch work across the window to reduce the stretching, but now Ensis have said if you want the best quality wing, you're going to have to get rid of the window because it does distort the wing when you're flying it. We did find that on our last SUPboarder Pro test last year. Definitely the wings that weren't so well designed did suffer by having baggy, stretchy windows. So Ensis have swapped out their window. There is no window on this new wing. You just have them all the sizes like this, window free. Now that actually has pros and cons to having windows. When we first started using wings, obviously having a window is a really nice thing to have. You can see through and see where you're riding, if you're going to hit anybody, and definitely if you're winging in a really busy area, lots of boats, lots of other wingers, surfers, having a window does help. But you do start to understand how to use your wing by looking under it and looking around it, and definitely the more experience we've got now over the last year and a half with using wings, we tend to use window wings less, but there is still pros and cons to them. Just before we talk about what it's like on the water, let's have a quick look at the bag. You get a good quality, lightweight, simple backpack. That's absolutely fine, fits the wing in nice and easy. You've got padded straps, you've got some supports here for putting your pump onto. As I said, it doesn't come with a pump, this wing, you have to buy that as an extra. The bag is definitely nothing special, drainage hole in the bottom, it's good quality, fits the wing easily, and it's nice and comfy when you're carrying it. So on the water, looking at the Ensis wing, the first thing you'll notice is the shape of the wing, the canopy shape. No matter where you're holding it or what sort of conditions you're using it in, the canopy stays the same. It stays with a nice profile to the back edge here, as you can see even in this video in the studio, and that's to do with the gusset area and how they've tensioned the main leading edge so it opens the wing up and keeps that profile the whole time. Because of that, it does give you a lot of control, and definitely at the low wind stakes when you're trying to pump and get onto the foil really early, keeping that shape, keeping that nice profile of the wing, and to do with the stiffness of the front leading edge because of the high PSI pressure, gives you a lot of power to get you up on that foil nice and early. Looking at the high end side of that argument, the wing still keeps that profile, so you don't hear any of that fluttering noise you do with some of the flatter wings that have the canopy can come open and close towards this rib. So the profile stays the same whatever the wind conditions. If you're pumping with your foil on a wave, if you're parking the wing in the surf, whatever you're doing, the profile stays exactly the same. The only downside to having a full profile in a wing like that all the time is it can be a little tiny bit more technical to use, especially if you're an intermediate beginner struggling maybe in the higher winds. It won't depower as much as a flatter wing with less profile here would do. Saying that, it still is quite controllable in the wind sense itself, doesn't want to throw itself around too much like some other wings on the market with more V or more shape to them. It does like to hang and sit when you're holding the front edge, very stable and calmly, and as I said, it holds that profile so it pretty much looks the same no matter what wind condition it is and where you're holding it. Definitely we found this a really big benefit when we were taking it out in the surf and riding bumps and riding waves. Very easy to park, hang, worry about your foil, worry about where you're going on your wave, and the wing will just sit there. And even for a 5-meter wing, which is a fairly hefty size, in the surf, in lighter winds, it didn't want to rock, rotate, or catch the water at all. And that's all to do with the profile being nice and stable and having a large chunky handle that's easy to get hold of. We would completely agree with Ensis that it is a very good all-round wing. We've used it flat water light winds, we've used it flat water heavier winds, freestyle, waves, getting out in the waves in really light gutless sort of 9 knots. We've done a lot with this wing and we can say it's very comfortable in all of those conditions. And again, that's also due to the profile of the wing, the large handles and the stiffness of the front edge. Talking a bit more about the handles themselves, because these handles are very large and not small little looped handles like you do have on some other wings, does give you an easy option to be able to slide your hand around front and back. So you've got a lot amount of control. In some ways it's a bit more like a boomed wing opposed to having lots of smaller handles, so you have got that more amount of control, or you can tailor where you're actually holding your hands exactly. We really like the way the handles stand off from the main rib themselves. They don't stick out too far, because if they stick out too far, then when you're transitioning maybe from your jibes or tacks, you would struggle to grab the right handle. You might catch yourself as you're moving your hand down the rib. So they stand out enough, but not too much. And again, really chunky, solid, very easy to hold. When it comes to packing the wing up, it's incredibly quick to deflate because it's got that large max flow air valve. Just take the nozzle off, untake the cap, put your finger straight in the hole and the air comes out straight away. Very quick, very simple, and as I said, you can lock these valves off to keep your main rib inflated if you want to. Now moving on to wing range, ability of rider that should be buying this wing, and pros and cons and value for money. On the Ensis website, they recommend 9 to 25 knots for this wing. I would say probably you could even go a little bit higher with this if you're a bit more experienced because of that profile, and definitely 9 knots, yeah, but if you went out maybe with a bigger foil, an 1800 front wing on your foil, you could probably even get up foiling in even lighter winds, maybe 7 knots, 8 knots definitely. If you're looking at this as a non-foiling wing, as in taking out with a non-foiling board, we actually use this Ensis non-foiling board, which is quite a giggle. You can go out in super light winds, obviously 5 knots, it's quite comfortable, but also you can take it out into the higher wind strength as well. When you're using a wing with a non-foiling board, generally 12 knots plus is a very comfortable sort of wind range to start winging in, because you need enough wind to actually really feel that wing, and for you actually to lean back against it and push your edge of your board in the water. Definitely ability wise, you could get on this, and we have put first time wingers on this wing. Definitely it's no harder to use than any other wing on the market. There is maybe a sense if you're using it in higher end winds and you're more of a beginner, it may be a little bit more technical because of that profile, but only in the top end scale of that wind window. For most of your wind riding, foiling or non-foiling, it's a very comfortable, easy wing to use, and it's a very lightweight wing as well, so it's very easy to throw around in that sense. Moving on to pros and cons and value for money. Well, pros, you've got an incredibly lightweight wing that feels very stiff with a good selection of handles that gets you up and going really in those lighter winds. Incredible amount of power to this wing because of the profile of the wing itself. It's well made, it's nice to have that backing from Bas Muller, who's an exceptionally good wing freestyler, and you sort of know that you are going to be able to push the limits with this wing because he is behind this brand. All the stitch work and the main webbing that's securing the handles does feel really secure, so definitely if you're getting into the freestyle or the higher end of the sport and really trying to push the limits on the wing itself, I don't think this wing is going to come apart at all at the handles, which sometimes when we're doing maneuvers on other wings we do think, oh, this might be pushing it a little bit, but having the large webbing straps around the handles really does feel completely solid and held on well. We're really happy how this wing performs in all conditions. It's good for beginners getting into the sport at moderate wind strengths. It's definitely good for the freestylers out there, really happy in the waves, parking the wing and just riding the waves with your foil. Looking at cons, we're going to look at a few things here that you definitely need to highlight when you're looking at this wing. Now first off, talking about handles. Now for most people, 90% of the time these handles are in the right place, but there is the time when maybe you're a little bit more overpowered and you're using it in those higher wind conditions, that having a front handle just here would be so much better to give you that more angle where you can sheet out that little bit more, but you haven't gone on to the main leading edge, so it gives you a little bit more control. Definitely Lucy, who's riding this a few times, who's really getting into winging, she's got shorter arms than we have, and she was finding that if she had a handle here, it would be a little bit easier to control between this handle and that handle, because this handle's too close to that handle, and having that fronter handle would made it and given the wing a little bit more the ability to use, especially in higher winds. For moderate winds she found it okay, but in higher winds that extra handle at the front would help. The window thing is obviously something to think about, and it's more of a compromise. I can see why Ensis have dropped the window from this wing. I personally do not think it's an issue. Sometimes though, if I am foiling or winging in higher wind and maybe in busier areas where everything's moving a bit quicker, there is the tendency to want to be able to see through the wing a little bit more. So there would be an advantage to having a window, but for the performance gain you get by not having the window, I can see why they haven't got it in, and I think it's a good move not to have it. So if you're maybe a beginner getting into the sport, and especially using the 5 meter, 5.2 meter size wing, it's a bit bigger. You will find it a bit harder to see obviously through, and having a window would benefit you when you are using it in busier areas. And the last thing to be aware about and think about with wings that have profile like this, all of the time. They're a very balanced, good, controllable wing. The downside to them is sometimes maybe if you're learning and you're getting yourself into tacks, foiling tacks, and you bring your wing across your head and maybe you bring the wing down slightly, the wind can catch on the back of the wing and actually force you down with your wing on your head. In effect, the wind pushes the top of the wing and actually forces you down. Now with a wing that had a gusset here that could collapse and go flat, you don't have that problem. The wing can come over your head, it can flatten off, you can control yourself, get back up on the foil and carry on going. So with a wing with more profile, the wind can catch the top of the edge of the wing more and sometimes push you back down. It's an intermediate sort of thing that you might be aware of if you're learning to wing and you're learning to foil, doing foiling tacks. Sometimes that wing can catch you out like that. It's not a massive thing to consider, but it is something to be aware about, and the downside of having a full profiled wing like this. Looking at value for money, well, it is at the higher end price bracket, isn't it? £825 for a 5.2 metre wing. You can find them a little bit more, you can find them a little bit cheaper. Obviously you don't need to buy a boom or anything, it comes complete. You do need to buy a pump though. It's acceptable at that price for sure. It's well made, good quality, and it is going to suit a wide range of abilities. Definitely maybe if you're a beginner and you don't want to spend that much, you might be looking at a cheaper price point wing, maybe also with a window. But for you more performance driven wingers, or you're really committed to winging, definitely at that price point, I'd be happy to put £825 down for the Ensis Wing. If we could summarise who should buy this wing, well definitely this wing would suit a lot of different disciplines and different riding styles and a lot of different conditions. Whether you want to learn to non-foil wing with your inflatable paddleboard and you want to get into foiling and have a wing that takes you to the full limit of potential freestyle or surfing, the Ensis Wing will do that. If you're an intermediate winger already, you will love the benefits and the stable nature that the Ensis has. So there we go. I hope that's helped you understand if the Ensis Wing is right for you. Remember, if you really want to find out if this wing is comparable to other wings on the market, you've got to sign up and check out the SUPboarder Pro Test, which will be out end of October, start of November. We're going to be having anywhere between 10, maybe 12, maybe even a few more wings than that arriving in the next few weeks. We are testing them all together, over several different conditions, several different days with several different riders, and they're going to correlate all of that information into one video and give you all the information to help you understand which wing is best for you. We really are looking forward to that and comparing this wing to other wings on the market at the moment. Thank you very much for watching this video. Give it a like if you found it useful. Please jot any comments down below. Check out SUPboarder Mag if you're not watching this review on there, and of course if you're mad keen on SUP and getting into winging, check out SUPboarder Pro. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.